All right, everybody, we are live with the Combatcast with the man called Dave and Chevy, episode 212. We're going to talk about UFC 318, this past weekend's UFC Fight Night, Lewis and Teixeira. As always, if you like what you see, please like and subscribe. We'd appreciate it. And before we do anything else, Chevy, why don't we talk about what's coming up?
All right, July 26th, UFC Fight Night, Whitaker versus DeRitter. That's from Abu Dhabi, so that'll be a 3 p.m. Eastern start time. And then August 2nd, UFC Fight Night, Albazi versus Tyra, 6 p.m. Apex card. That's a fun flyweight fight. And then August 9th, UFC Fight Night, Dolidis versus Hernandez, 7 p.m. from the Apex. That's a good middleweight fight.
Yeah, should be some throwing down in that one for sure. Mm-hmm. All right, let's talk about throwing down. Let's get back to this week's UFC Fight Night, Teixeira and Lewis. This one didn't last long. Before we get into the main event and co-main event, though, any other fights from this weekend catch your eye?
Yeah, Chris Curtis made his UFC welterweight debut against Max Griffin. It was a good fight. Max Griffin used a lot of his movement. He was pretty crisp, a lot of lateral movement. But he slowed down towards the end. Chris Curtis just landed the heavier shots on him. He won a split decision. So welcome to the welterweight division. I think he's going to do much better there. I think frame-wise, he fits better there. So
yeah, he's a big guy. And
yeah,
he can carry that over in that division. That'd be good for him.
Yeah, and also, Nate the Train Landwehr, he had a fun fight with Morgan Charrier, French prospect. So he was getting out grappled in the first round, and then he came back and started beating him up in the second round, really wear him down with some funky timing and throwing long combinations and stuff. And then finally at the end, Charrier just came in the third round and just went ballistic on Nate and ended up knocking him out. It was a very long combination of him just throwing haymakers up against the cage. And Nate was dodging a lot of them, but enough of them got through, and then he finally got clipped by one that put him down. So,
I believe they got fight tonight too.
Yeah, it was a fun fight. Opposite end of the spectrum. Not a close fight was Calvin Kattar and Steve Garcia. Steve Garcia's I think it's 6 fights in a row. He had 5 straight finishes before this one. He absolutely dominated Calvin Kattar. Kattar was getting 8 punches or 8 strikes off in a round. He was just getting absolutely demolished by the jab. And Garcia's a problem, one to keep an eye out for in the featherweight division. He trains out of Jackson's. So he's been around for a while, but coming into his own now. But let's get into this co-main event. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson versus Gabriel Bonfim.
All right. We were talking about this off air. This was one fight I didn't get to. I was watching. I was listening to more while I had a busy weekend delivering. So my full focus wasn't that. I thought Wonderboy had done enough to win the fight. It looked close. It looked, at times, Wonderboy doing typically a lot of countering from what I could see. He was great at not staying down or being held. I thought he was coming back, but what did you see here? What did you see? You got to watch this more closely.
Yeah, he got taken down a few times. Specifically in the first round, he got taken down a couple times, but he got up. He was never in any submission danger, really. So, I think you can give the first round to Bonfim. The second round was pretty close until Wonderboy head kicked Bonfim. And, that was near the end of the round. He almost finished him. He was basically saved by the bell. He was being rushed by Wonderboy.
Which was amazing, too, because that's the leg he had just checked. And huge gash. But then he almost
down to the bone, yeah.
Yeah.
And he just kept throwing that leg. He didn't care. He kept head kicking him with a bloody stump, basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the third round, Wonderboy started out doing well. He was winning on the feet, and then Bonfim basically just held him up against the cage.
Yeah.
Which I want to bring this up because, MMA scoring and everyone's complaining. Personally, I think Wonderboy got robbed. I think a lot of times you can say, they didn't do enough to get a win or whatever.
Right.
but I thought Wonderboy legitimately got robbed in this fight. If you remember, I did not pick Wonderboy to win. I didn't think he was going to win, so it's not a bias thing. I think he got robbed, and I think scoring-wise, they should not score octagon control. If a fight is so close that it's getting down to octagon control as the determining factor, just score the round a draw. Like, why can't we do that? Why can't it just be a 10-10 or a 9-9 or whatever you want to give it? If it's so close that just holding a guy up against the cage gets him a win, that's not enough for me. So hopefully you can do something with the scoring and the judging in the future, because that's a lot of money out of these guys' pockets. It also does not make for a very good product. Obviously, lots of booing. Not very fun. But
it would be interesting if they did call that more of a draw. Like, if you're not doing something with it, you're not attempting to do anything. I understand for a little bit, but if that ends up being the whole round and you're just trying to win with control time, then
there's no incentive to actually go for a finish if you can get the win by just holding your opponent. So it's not that, some of these guys aren't capable of going for a finish or finishing takedowns and holding the guy down or whatever. Or getting ground and pound when they get them down. It's just that why would they risk the position if they can just win by just holding on? So I think that's something we need to fix.
Especially against a dangerous striker like Wonderboy Thompson. Yeah.
It just seems to be happening more and more in all these fights. You're getting less and less finishes, more and more decisions by just not even grappling, just holding on. So.
All right. Well, that main event this was not the case in the main event.
Yeah. It's never going to be that case with Derek Lewis. So Derek the Black Beast Lewis versus Taliesin Teixeira, very vaunted prospect, undefeated Taliesin Teixeira.
Yeah, I mean, you run the risk when you put that prospect against somebody like a Derek Lewis. Derek Lewis is a fun, entertaining guy, so it's not the worst thing because as long as Derek Lewis is in the UFC, you're almost guaranteed to have some entertainment value with him because he can talk, he can knock people out, and people have really just grown to love him over the years. So it's not the worst thing, but you definitely, if you're looking for Teixeira to grow, you might have stumped it here for a little bit. But hey, he got caught. That's part of the game. You were right on this one. You called this one. I thought that Teixeira would find a way to win. He did not. He got clipped early. We knew that was a possibility either way. Ultimately, big win for the Black Beast, who called out his wife afterwards.
Yeah, it was a great main event. Obviously, just too much too soon for Teixeira. Heavyweight division. We talked about this last week. He shouldn't be headlining anything with 8 fights or whatever. He's 25 years old, which in heavyweights is basically a teenager. He won't get to his prime until his mid-30s, late 30s. So to fight someone with the experience of Derek Lewis was not very fair to him, I don't think. But the guy was on a finish streak, so he got the call, got an opportunity, and got punished for it. And then, people were complaining about the stoppage because he wasn't out, but he was literally climbing the cage, like hands in the cage multiple times to get up while he's taking shots. So I was okay with the stoppage. You don't want to eat any extra shots from Derek Lewis. Like I said, it's not a title fight. He's 25 years old. He's got plenty of fights left in him. I was okay with the stoppage. Obviously, we got to talk about Derek's after the fight antics. So where do we start? We start with he talked to Donald Trump on Dana White's cell phone. I think he was upset that Donald wasn't there, and he was talking to Dana immediately after the knockout. And then Trump said, "He's watching on TV. I'll call him." And so he talked to him before DC was able to talk to him in the ring. He ran over to Taliesin's corner, who apparently was talking shit all week, even though he doesn't speak Portuguese. It was just a feeling he had. And he pretended to urinate like a dog on the corner. Obviously, he took his shorts off, which is given. Obviously, he took his cup out and threw it into the crowd. And then he said, "Give me another Brazilian taxi taxi cab driver to fight because he doesn't want to fight any champs. And then his next call out was his wife, obviously. So
we hadn't seen in 2 weeks and said there'd be some serious ground and pound. Yeah,
serious ground and pound. Yeah, so that was the first time that she was actually in the cage when he said some wild shit like that. So it was funny, but
she seems like she's got a good sense of humor about it, and she knows. I'm sure she knows who she's married to at this point.
So it was a classic Black Beast fight. Gets a quick knockout and then some wild shit on the mic. He's a very fun character.
It's what you want. It's what you want, honestly, a lot of times with that guy. So.
He extends his lead as the all-time most knockouts in the UFC as well. So
awesome. Well, let's talk about some performance guys here on this upcoming UFC 318 Holloway Poirier 3 Louisiana. Poirier's final fight. And man, we get to that fight, we'll have so many bonuses to talk about here with these two legends. So this is a good main card, but any other fights on this card you want to bring up?
Yeah, there are a lot of good fights on this card, but I just want to shout out Jimmy Crute versus Marcin Prachnio. That's going to be a fun one. And then Marvin Vettori and Brendan Allen got moved to this card. That's on the prelims.
Oh,
so, but probably going to watch this one from the beginning. I'm excited for this card, but let's get into the main card here.
Yes.
Leading off with Michael Johnson versus Daniel Zellhuber. There's a lot of good matchmaking on this main card.
Yeah, Zellhuber is 15-2, 7 KOs, 3 subs, 5 decisions. He's had Fight of the Night twice, Performance of the Night once. He's 3-2 in the UFC, coming off a loss. He's never been finished, though, so that's always interesting. Michael Johnson, this is a guy that's been around forever. 23-19, 10 KOs, 2 subs, 11 decisions. Fight of the Night 3 times, Performance of the Night twice. He's been in the UFC since 2010, so 15 years in the UFC. And, you look at that record, but he's on a 2-fight win streak right now. He's won 3 out of his last 4. He's very capable. He's a veteran. I'm going to go with Michael Johnson here, I think. I won't be surprised either way. I think this is good matchmaking. Be interesting even fight. He is getting older, but I'll go with the veteran here and see if he can make it 3 in a row. Decision, though.
Yeah, Zellhuber's last fight, if you remember, was that fight of the year at UFC Noche versus Esteban Ribovics. Super fun fight, but that was, over a year ago now, or almost a year ago now. Johnson, like you said, he's been up and down, but he remains super dangerous. It's tough to count him out. But I think that Zellhuber's going to get this one done. I think he's got crisper striking, although Michael Johnson has great striking. I think Zellhuber is going to be a little bit more defensively sound after that Ribovics fight. So if he does try to have a war with Michael Johnson, I think Michael Johnson can put him out. Ribovics, very dangerous. I'm sure he put some cracks in that chin of Zellhuber. I think Michael Johnson can put him out. But I'm going to go with decision win for Zellhuber.
All right, let's get to the next one here.
All right, very fun fight again. Dan Ige versus Patricio Pitbull. Second UFC fight.
Patricio Pitbull, 36-8, 12 KOs, 12 subs, 12 decision. This guy was a Bellator lightweight champion and featherweight champion. He did use his UFC debut against Mario Batista. Wasn't the most exciting fight. I think he's going to want to make that up here. But this is Dan Ige, 19-9, 7 KOs, 5 subs, 7 decisions. Performance of the Night 4 times. He's definitely an exciting fighter. We've seen him take fights on hours' notice before, so he's a tough one. I think Patricio Pitbull, though, is a little more I think he's the better overall fighter. I think he's more well-rounded, and I think he's got a chip on his shoulder, and he's really going to want to make up for that last performance. I will take him, but again, another decision here.
I think these guys have very similar styles and a very similar skill set. Looking for, a right hand a lot of the times. I mean, Patricio could take it to the ground, but I don't think he will. So I just see Dan as basically a younger version. So I'm leaning towards him. I'll say Dan gets a TKO in round 2.
All right.
All right, moving on. Another very fun fight. Kevin Holland versus Daniel D-Rod Rodriguez.
All right, D-Rod is 19-5, 9 KOs, 4 subs, 6 decisions, 9-4 in the UFC, 2-fight win streak. Kevin Holland, 28, 13-1, 14 KOs, 9 subs, 5 decisions. Fight of the night once, performance of the night 9 times. Also on a 2-fight win streak here. Someone's going to try to make that 3 in a row. Both these guys are talented. I feel like maybe Holland is finally putting it together a little bit here. I'm going to take Holland maybe by submission. I think maybe submission round 2.
Yeah, this is great matchmaking. I don't see this one going to the ground, really.
Mm-hmm.
So I expect D-Rod to be crisp and fundamentally sound, Holland to be explosive and creative on the feet. So I think Holland's going to land the bigger shots.
Yeah.
But I don't see D-Rod being finished. So I'll pick Holland by decision. Okay. I think it's going to be a fun fight.
Yeah, I'm going to clarify. So what I'm picturing is, I'm not saying we're going to see a lot of grappling. I think Holland is going to get the better of a slugfest, and I picture him going for a choke or something, maybe a guillotine,
like in a clinch or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. We'll see what happens.
All right,
interesting.
Moving on, yeah, interesting. Paulo Costa versus Roman Kopylov.
Kopylov, 14-3, 12 KOs, 2 decisions. He's 6-3 in the UFC. He's coming off a head kick TKO win over Chris Curtis. Probably his biggest victory in the UFC. Mm-hmm. And now he's taking on Paulo Costa, who's 14-3, 11 KOs, 1 subs, 2 decisions. Performance of the night twice here. The thing about a fight of night twice as well. The thing about Costa, inactivity. All right. This last fight was 2024. Last fight before that was 2022. Before that is 2021. Before that is 2020. And then it goes on like 2019. It's just a lot. The guy was basically fighting once a year and then took a couple of years off. I don't like that. Costa's dangerous. He can crack. I don't know if he's the favorite. He might be, just given how he hits and everything, and he's been in some battles. But I'm going to go with Kopylov here. I'm going to say he finds a way to win. I don't know if you're going to finish Paulo Costa, though, so I'm going to say decision. But I just feel like Costa's inactivity is going to lead to a problem here.
Yeah, Costa hasn't won a real fight since 2019. So, I mean, he had that one win over Luke Rockhold, where, he was losing at a lot of parts of that fight. So,
right.
And Luke was basically already retired and not really a light heavyweight or whatever. So, I think you could take that one out and you could say Costa's lost 4 in a row, I think it was. So, I think Izzy took a part of him when he TKO'd him. He was undefeated up until that point, and he just has not looked the same. So, Costa has the power to win against anyone, but he needs to have the confidence to throw. I think he's just really not been throwing. He's too timid in there, waiting for that perfect shot instead of, putting the pressure on guys. So, if he isn't the one applying pressure and throwing first, then Kopylov will just pick him apart on the feet, I think. So I think that's the safer bet. So I'm going to pick Roman by decision. I'm hoping. I'm not the biggest Costa fan, but he did used to be an exciting fighter. So I'm hoping he can, get it going again.
I think we're in agreement here. I picked Roman by decision as well, but I also would not be bummed out if Costa can put on a decent performance and add some life. But boy, I'd like to see him fight a little bit more.
All right, moving on. Main event here. Max Holloway versus Dustin Poirier 3.
All right, Dustin is 39-1, 15 KOs, 8 subs, 7 decisions. Former interim UFC Lightweight Champion. Fight of the night 10 times. Submission of the night once. Performance of the night 4 times. Oh, man. Max Holloway, 26-8, 12 KOs, 2 subs, 12 decisions. Featherweight champion. Interim featherweight champion, 3 successful title defense. This guy,
BMF champion
currently. Knockout of the night 1 time, fight of the night 7 times, performance of the night 5 times. Like, just so many bonuses between these guys. You're guaranteed an exciting fight pretty much here. Poirier's 2-0 against Max. One of those fights was, I think, Max's first fight in the UFC. Poirier was able to submit him. That was a very young Max Holloway, young Poirier. And boy, Max has really changed the game. Now, they met again at lightweight, and Poirier had the more effective punches that night. He won by decision, kind of knocked Max around a little bit, but Max actually had higher volume punches in that fight. And, Max just was a lot smaller, and I think Dustin put on the more exciting fight that night, and he won. Good reason. So I say all that because I was looking online the other day, and Michael Bisping had posted something on his YouTube, like, who do you guys think are going to win? And I think like 59% at the time was saying Dustin. And I love Dustin. I love Holloway, but I just feel like when I look at the performances, with the exception of the last fight against Ilya, Holloway, he looked really good against Justin Gaethje. And I think lightweight is a very good division for him. I think you could argue that he should have made this jump a while ago, except for he was successful at featherweight. But, all the weight he had to suck down for that. I just feel like this is his home right now. Maybe it's a little late in the game to be going at lightweight. Like, is he going to win the lightweight title? I don't know, especially Ilya's champ again now. But I think that, I think this is his time right now a little more than it is Dustin. I love Dustin. Would not be sad at all if he gets to win and goes out with a victory in his hometown. But I'm going to pick Holloway. I'll pick Holloway. Ooh. I'm going to say a 4th round TKO. Could be 5th. I think volume. I think they're going to go back and forth. I think Dustin's going to rock him. He's going to rock Dustin. But I think as the fight goes on, Holloway gets stronger and just outvalue, more volume. And I think Holloway will put it on him.
Yeah, like you said, neither guy has ever been in a boring fight, so we're definitely in for a war. Yeah, this being Dustin's last fight is an interesting variable. Like, will he be emotional? Will it change how he fights?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Guillotine, baby.
I don't think so either. I'm gonna cop out. I'm not gonna make a pick because I love both guys so much.
You do.
And I think on any given night, this fight could go either way, a multiple of ways. So I will point out that, like you said, last time they fought, which was, semi-recently, the first fight you can throw out, that was 2 different guys. Last time they fought, Max had no fights at lightweight. So he had come up specifically just to fight Dustin. So he didn't really have time to put on the weight properly. But we saw when he did come up to fight Gaethje and he put all the weight on properly, what he could do with that. So,
6 years ago, it was 6 years ago still. So, I mean,
So, that's a long time when you're the age that Dustin is. Max is still relatively young, even though he's got a lot of miles on him. Right. He's only like 31 or something.
We hadn't seen that, though, till his very last fight. And so that's the next factor, too. Did Ilya start something here with that knockout? Is this going to be the time? Because there was a war with Gaethje before that, too, where, even though Max was winning that fight and laid him out, Gaethje knocked him down. That was the first time he had gotten knocked down, and they didn't call it a knockdown, but Max said, no, he knocked me down. He got me. So it is interesting to know that, too. Knowing that, who knows? Maybe Dustin is just Mr. I don't want to say lucky because he's talented, but maybe he fights Max at the right times, right? First time at lightweight. Boo, first fight in the UFC, and now finally, like right when Max that chin starts to fade, Dustin will get him. I don't know. You look at a common opponent like Justin Gaethje. Poirier's finished him. He's also gotten knocked out by him. Holloway's only fought him once, and that was a competitive fight until the very end when they decided to say the hell with it. Here's an interesting one. Do you think if we get to the 5th round and it's those final seconds, do you think we get the point?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Too.
Oh my God. I would go nuts because there's nobody that you want to be in that phone booth throwing punches with less than Dustin Poirier. Nobody is better in that situation than Dustin Poirier. Max will wing them in there and he doesn't care if he's getting hit. Dustin will be dodging all those and landing strong. So I hope for Max's sake it doesn't get to that point, but I do think if it gets to,
we will see that
24 minutes and and 50 seconds, we'll see the point down for sure.
Mhm.
And I bet they both do it. I bet
Oh,
Dustin
for sure.
does it too, so
I for sure see that happening.
Yeah. I am very excited for the fight. I think it's going to be very fun. You know, I know I'm copping out by not making a pick, but I just hope it's a great fight. Both guys can be proud of afterwards for sure.
Absolutely. All right. Let's tell people what we got coming up besides this one more time.
Well, before we get out, let's just shout out to Ben Askren. He, obviously he had his double lung transplant, which we talked about last week. Well, he's now put out 2 videos since then, where he's actually the one doing it. His wife, Amy, was updating everyone before. And now Ben is conscious and awake and able to talk. He, you can go watch his videos on his Instagram or his Twitter, but he said he lost 50 pounds in 45 days. He died 4 times, so he's a miracle. A shout out to Jake Paul, shout out to Dana White for putting, I heard Andrew Tate did as well, put money in towards, to, get Ben these lungs. So, bless those guys, and good luck to Ben. Hopefully his next video will be sent from his house.
Yeah. Good luck to Ben Askren. Glad to see that he's doing a little bit better. It's definitely a journey, and wow. Just hearing that stuff and then even seeing him too and how different he looks. It's like, this is a guy who's been through it. I hope that he goes on to make a full recovery and everything. And but yeah, the good news, at least we're hearing from him. And like you said, shout out to those people that helped him out.
Yeah. All right. Going forward, July 26th, UFC Fight Night, Whitaker versus DeRitter. Interesting middleweight matchup at the top. That's 3 p.m. from Abu Dhabi. And then August 2nd, UFC Fight Night, Albazi versus Tyra. Tyra's a guy I'm very excited about in flyweight division. 6 p.m. from the Apex. And then August 9th, UFC Fight Night, Dolides versus Fluffy Hernandez, 7 p.m. from the Apex.
All right, guys, some fun fights coming up, but it's all about this weekend, UFC 318. We'll talk about it here next week. All right, guys, enjoy the fights.